Andy.
This is Andy. This Ryan.
This is he. Can you
Pleasure
hear
to
me?
hear you. Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me? I've got
Yes.
some Bluetooth headphones in.
Okay, cool. So, just so you know, this is going to be recorded
Okay.
because that will make it a lot easier to transcribe it later.
Okay. Are you having any wind interference? Because I've got a bunch of fans running because the studio I'm in is not temperature controlled.
Well, I could hear it, but it's low enough that it won't affect anything, I don't think.
Okay. Okay. I'll try to get out of the way of it a little bit too, so it's not you don't get the wind interference.
I do need you to try to enunciate if you can, though, just because.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Okay, cool. So, how are you doing?
I'm good. I just yeah, just busy at work in the studio for this residency. How are you doing?
Doing good. Just got a lot of work done myself today, and glad we got to connect with one another. That we didn't have to put it off another day. So
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I just uh, neglected to think about the fact that we hadn't swapped phone numbers, and then I just got working in the studio and completely lost track of time, and I do apologize.
I understand that. It's no big deal. I've been in that position myself before. So I've
I appreciate you understanding.
yeah I've got a piece of paper in front of me here that I've written a bunch of one word kind of stimulators for myself to ask questions with. But
Okay.
also feel free to talk about whatever you want to as well.
Okay.
Since it is being recorded, there's no you don't have to worry about going off topic or anything.
Okay.
So first question, easy one. What is your name and where are you located in time and space?
My name is Andy the Doorbum, and I'm currently in my studio at Goodyear Arts Collective in Charlotte, North Carolina, on North Graham Street. And I'm currently working on a 6-week artist residency program that I was lucky enough to be accepted for here in Charlotte, North Carolina. And
What's the nature of the
yeah,
residency?
it's I mean, I was accepted based on essentially as a multimedia artist. I presented to them that I would like to craft a one-time show where I designed and put together costumes, a set, spoken word and music elements, lighting elements, essentially to do a one-time unique performance that will premiere on the 29th of July.
Okay. Where's that performance going to be?
At Goodyear Arts on North Grand Street at a place called Camp North End.
Now, you mentioned that it's a multimedia performance. I know you do music, and you do performance art. Do you also engage in any visual art?
I do. Yeah, I mean, normally, all of the record covers and T-shirt, various merch items that I have when I am touring or performing, I draw and design all those things. And the same with this performance. The set that the performance will exist in will all be things designed and made by me. So
Cool.
yeah, there's definitely that visual element to it for sure.
Have you worked with this gallery or art space before?
No, it was just coming to exist when I moved away from Charlotte about 7 years ago, and a couple of people who are involved in the collective. It's a collective of artists that run it, but they're also funded by like the Arts Council and a couple different arts grants programs. When I moved away to California 7 years ago, it was kind of just getting started, and a couple people had, said I should try to apply back then. But of course, I moved away, and it wasn't a feasibility or an option at the time. So when I moved back, I thought, why not give it a shot? I figured I probably would not get accepted for it, but luckily I did.
Very cool. So, did you go to school or university for art?
No, I graduated high school. That's the best I did. I remember when I was in high school in Gaston County, North Carolina, a couple of my teachers kind of encouraged me to go to college, but I was from a very poor family, and it just wasn't, going into a lot of debt didn't seem like a practical path for the future for me.
Sure.
Because my grades weren't good enough to get any kind of funding or anything. So, I remember a teacher that I really liked suggesting that I go to school for art or music, and at the time, my thought process on that was, well, why would I want someone to tell me how to do a thing that I know how to do in my core? I don't. The thing that I like about art and music is that when it comes from a place that isn't taught, and so I never considered it, and to this day I don't think that was a mistake for me personally.
And you, in your music videos and even on stage, you use a lot of I guess like costumery and sometimes makeup sort of stuff. Do you have intentions behind that, or is that more of just a subconscious expression?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Like everything that I do, I'm trying to convey a mood or a sentiment, but I don't want it to be too literal. I want it to be vague. I want it to be vague to a point. Like I want the overall. There's an overall intention to it, but I want it to be able to be interpreted by people who are witnessing it or experiencing it in a way where they can make it their own. I think if things are too literal, there's too much of for lack of a better word, there's too much of a parent in the child. Like the artistic expression as an artist, is your child, and you can rear it with every intention that you have and put all of those things into it. But once it grows up to go out into the world, it belongs to itself and to everyone else who interacts with it in some way. So I don't want to have too much ownership over that.
I see.
I have an idea when I do it, but I wouldn't cling to that idea too hard.
I got you. Are you hoping that people will connect with it as you intend, or does the idea of the unpredictable result excite you?
Yeah, that the idea of that excites me, because honestly, like when I'm putting something into the world with the intention that I have, I'm getting that out of it. Like that's I'm getting what I intend it to be out of it by presenting it, and so I'm fulfilled at that point as the person who made it, and then I would rather it go on to be what other people perceive it to be. To me, that's the beauty of artistic expression, is that it doesn't stay yours. I like the idea of like it gets to be both things. Like it gets to be yours because you put all this time and effort and intention into it, and then when you present it, all of those things are achieved, and then someone can take something completely different away from it, and it becomes that too. It gets to live many lives, and I like I like that things get to have many lives. I hope that I also get to have many lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, do you believe in any reincarnation?
Uh, I don't. I wouldn't say that I'm a particular subscriber to any spiritual belief completely. I'm open. I'm open to the ideas. I've read the vast majority of all the holy books, the Bhagavad Gita, the Torah, the Kabbalah, the Quran. You know, as many of those things as I can get my hands on, I have read extensively, and I think they're important. Even just at a base level, they're important because they've drastically influenced the course of humanity for several thousand years. So I take stock in the validity of them, but I would not dare to call myself a believer in any one thing over another thing.
I see.
I, I have some ideas, but I don't think that I just don't think that my personal I don't think my personal beliefs are incredibly firm. I think they're fluid, and I don't think that they're terribly important.
Is one of your ideas reincarnation?
Yeah, I've entertained it, and I'm open to it for sure. Um, but I think human beings have had a lot of good ideas over time, and I think that there's room for all of them. And I don't think that any one is necessarily any more or less valid than the others. So I don't want to put my name in the hat of any one thing, because I think my personal opinion is, if you do that, you in some way, for whether you intend to or not, invalidate the other things. And I think the universe is a place of infinite possibilities, and I would rather exist in a place where many things are possible rather than one thing being the end all be all of things.
So does any of that inform your art?
Oh yeah, all of it does. Um, I'm intensely fascinated with ritual and ceremony, because I think that those things are as intrinsically human as starting a fire, as cultivating a crop. I think that is one of the things that has led human beings to be able to achieve what we have, for better or worse. And uh, I I'm interested in those things on their own. Like, I know that ceremony and ritual have largely been lumped into spiritual and religious phenomena, and I think that ceremony and ritual are powerful and important human experiences beyond that, beyond a dogma, beyond rules and criteria for what you have to do to make something important. And I've actively been trying to experiment with how those elements can be meaningful uh, outside of rules, essentially, like outside of belief systems, because I think those things are. I think there are some things that transcend spiritual belief, and I think that our relationship to nature does that. I think our use of fire does that. I think our use of ceremony and ritual do that. And I like the idea of exploring those things as standalone human traits uh, rather than religious things. And I think there's a reason that people, engage in ceremony and ritual and call them religious experiences. But uh, I don't think that I don't think that needs to necessarily have anything to do with a god or a belief system.
Now we're getting into an interesting sort of corner here. Um, so, are you talking about the emotional impact or the emotional what's derived emotionally from a ritual being, or are you talking about um, like the sense of communion that one gets not being having to be tied into a religion? Are you talking about something specific, or are you talking about just are you just talking as a simple fact that there are rituals and they have effects?
Uh, yeah, I'm largely talking about a simple fact that there are rituals and they have effects, but I think that the great power that comes from ritual and why many and ceremony and why many religions use those things is because human beings are social creatures. We have evolved to be that. We would not have achieved what we have without our social networks, uh, our ability to operate socially. Like you can't, one human being cannot build a computer. It takes a multitude of people with a multitude of skills to build a computer. If the world were to collapse, if society world were to collapse, we could have the knowledge of how you build a computer, and we couldn't do it without uh, the social networking that allows us to make that possible, like to culminate all of those skills. So I think that ritual and ceremony are incredibly powerful because they are shared experiences, and people can there can be and I'll say this, like, this might be a thing that's a little unexplainable and we might not be able to fully explain, but there can be a feeling in a room and everyone feels it at the same time, and that means something. And I don't think what that means is dependent on a belief system or a god or any other ethereal structure. I think that means something because uh, everyone is there to experience it and is able to tap into whatever that is. And I'm perfectly fine with not being able to define what that is and not trying to define what that is. I think the importance lies in the fact that those are tangible, real experiences that we can have, and that should be embraced and exalted outside of everything else.
Okay, you're provoking a lot of ideas and questions in my mind, which is great because it makes for a good interview. Um, let me go back to what you said before um, about the idea that it takes a society of people to create a computer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
um, what that instantly makes me think, because I'm a man who thinks in terms of exceptions, is could a process be derived that could be written onto a piece of paper that then, if someone speaks that language and knows how to read, they can create a computer from nothing? Can you make a process by which one individual with starting with nothing but their body could create a computer?
Well, I mean, theoretically, maybe, but the thing is, like, a computer consists of a lot of different resources that have to be mined, extracted from the earth, refined, and crafted into the components that it would take to build a computer. So, could one human being in their lifetime, from start to finish, engage in all of the processes that it takes to create a computer? I don't think so.
Interesting.
I do not think so because it takes it takes multiple groups of people engaging in very specific tasks to get each component of that computer, the hundreds or thousands of components that it takes, the refined metals, the circuitry, all of these things like have to be mined from the earth and then refined to a place where they can then be crafted into the components that it takes and then articulately put together to make that thing. Honestly, I think if one human being tried to do that from start to finish, it would take more than a lifetime to achieve.
See, that's where then now we've met in the middle here with the statement, if one person tried to do it themselves. I'm saying, can a process be fashioned by which the communication of that process can be given to someone, and then they can follow that process in the course of a lifetime? So they don't have to discover the methods by which the process is concocted. They only have to be given the process. And one would assume that multiple human beings assumedly with multiple lifetimes, because that's what civilization is, could develop could willfully develop a process by which one human being starting from nothing with only the words can create a computer by themselves.
Well, but you're saying like multi-generationally, which is a social network, because it, like, think about the time that it would take if one human being set out to make a hamburger from scratch. They would have to raise a cow from a calf into an adult cow, slaughter it, process the meat. They would have to raise a field of wheat on their own. They would have to process that down, render it down into the raw materials that it takes to make a bun. They would have to raise the lettuce. Like that in and of itself is a very long process. And if we're talking about a computer, that is a process that, yes, it is achievable for one human being to know that process and achieve it through multiple generations. But one human being could not mine all of the raw materials, all the precious metals, all these things. They couldn't travel to the various continents in which these raw materials exist because they don't all exist in one place.
I don't think I'm communicating myself correctly, and there's a problem. I want to move on, but I want to finish this too. So just give me one more shot at this.
I've got all night.
I'm saying you'd have an infinitude of people and generations to come up with whatever the process is.
Yeah.
So one would assume if all of civilization was devoted to trying to be able to create a process by which one human being could create a computer, and so instead of all the other things we do in civilization, other than keeping people alive, all we're trying to do is create this perfect process by which one person can create a computer. So then just drop that process into someone's lap. So yeah, right now, the way we create computers, we know you have to have a mind. You have to have a mind full of people. But the idea would be use comparative analysis to cut out any inefficiency in the process over and over and over and over and over again. Like using the process against itself. So yeah, right now there's silicon, there's metal, but maybe there's a way to build a computer that's functional that all of the, in the end of the having discovered the process, all of the materials are available within like 1 square mile in New Mexico. Like,
hypothetically, yes, that's possible.
But of course you would need, consequentially, you would still need all those other people. But like
that's what I'm saying. Like in the modern day, yes, you could order all the components and they could come to you and you could build it yourself. But from scratch, even if you had all the instructions laid out to tell you exactly what you need to do for every step of the process, from scratch, could one human being do it? I don't think so.
I know that they can't do it according to the current process that we have. But I think if we put generations into developing a process by which one person could do it, we could come up with a way to do it.
Yeah, but therein lies what I'm saying. Like, if you're talking about multiple generations, you're talking about a social network of people. You're not talking about one human being doing it on their own. You're talking about passing down knowledge from generation to generation, which is a social network of people.
Absolutely. The knowledge, that's the key.
Yeah.
the knowledge and the
Yeah.
communication of the knowledge requires multiple individuals. And absolutely, I agree with you on that, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Or even the process, like from scratch to mine and refine all of those materials would take either a lot of people at once doing those things in multiple different parts of the globe, or that knowledge being passed down and those materials being passed down as one person mines and refines one thing, passes that down and passes the knowledge down, the next person does the next step. It would still take a lot of people to do it. It would take a network of people to make that possible with what we know now
Right.
about how it's done.
By our current process, yes, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, moving on. So, to me, what you're talking about in terms of groups of people and the communication of ideas and the communion of emotions, to me that sounds like shamanism in a way. Does that touch on anything you do?
I find validity in the ideas of shamanism, but would not I would not venture to. I would not. I don't have delusions of grandeur about what I do. Like I think that I believe very much in what I'm doing. I believe that it's what I'm here to do in some way, because I feel it in my core. But I don't come from a place personally where I believe that I could have any claim to something like shamanism, and so I'm just doing what feels right. I don't I've read a lot about shamanism. I find it to be very valid in the cultures in which it exists, but as someone of European descent whose family has been on this continent since the mid to late 1700s, I don't think it would be fair to me for me to try to claim any kind of ownership over a term like that, or an idea like that, or a practice like that, because I'm in light of like the cultures that actively pursue those things, I'm a bumbling fool.
Okay. Like, I had this question just written down for you.
Okay.
Who is God?
Whoever you want it to be.
Whoever I want it to be, or whoever you want it to be?
Whoever anyone wants it to be.
Who do you want it to be?
That's a big question. I don't know. I don't know who I want it to be.
That's a good answer.
Actively trying to figure that out. Will probably spend my entire life trying to figure that out. I mean, in some way, I think I find some solace in the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, that, at least what I've gained from it, that, I am a god. We are all gods. There is no God. Because we are one. We are, the universe is a I mean, the best idea that I've come up with so far, and it's not my own, is that we are sentient beings like humans are the universe trying to understand itself. I won't pretend to believe that the source of energy from which we all come from is a conscious sentient being, but I think that conscious sentient beings are a natural progression of matter continuing to constitute itself in more and more complex forms. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to consider this, and I will not ever pretend to know the answer, because I don't think the answer, I think the journey is more important than the answer. I don't think the answer is that relevant. I think the fact that we exist is enough, and I don't think it has to have the reason.
What do you think of aliens?
I'm inclined to believe, with what I know right now, and this could very well change in my life. I think it's far more likely that there are multiple parallel universes, and that ghosts and aliens are interdimensional beings, and they are the result of parallel universes butting up against each other occasionally, than beings from other planets visiting us, or dead people coming back to visit us.
Okay.
I've had multiple unexplainable experiences that could be classified traditionally as both alien or ghostly. My best idea would be that that it's a byproduct of interdimensional interplay, but I don't know. That you know, in 2022, that's what I would say, like, is the most plausible thing that I think that those things are. But you know, there again, I'm not gonna act like I know, because I don't.
Is it true that in the past you've been involved with cults?
No.
Never?
I mean, unless you consider Christianity a cult, and then yes.
I do. Well, some of it is. Some of it
I mean,
definitely meets the
yeah,
definition. I guess originally, if Jesus was real, then it is a cult because it celebrates and worships this dude.
yeah. I mean, I think Christianity fills a lot of the mechanisms of a cult. And when I was younger, I went to a Holy Roller Baptist church where they ran around with their eyes closed and spoke in tongues. And once they brought in a snake handler, and yeah, I wrote my first poem. I wrote my first poem for Jesus. I was inspired. And not that long after that, I started asking questions that no one could answer, and I quickly recanted my belief in that. And so yeah, and that, as far as that goes, like, I mean, yeah, maybe you could say that I was involved with the cult in that aspect, but otherwise, no. Since then, I have not prescribed to any belief system outside of my own experience in the world.
Does the phrase "art is war" mean anything to you?
It does, yeah. I think that existence, by its very nature, is warlike, in the sense that we're constantly living things are constantly struggling to survive. The nature of life is trying to survive the best that you can when other things are trying to consume you. I think that translates also into our modern human society. We're constantly uh, being assaulted by these mainstream ideas of how we should exist and what we should think. And I think that I like art because I think that it is a weapon, in the sense that when you make art, you get to create a little bit of your own reality, and that act in and of itself is a waging of a war against the reality that you're being confronted with. And as a sentient being, you get to, if you so choose, create your own world. And I think that's a very powerful thing, and a responsibility not to be taken lightly.
Now you're familiar with Emotron, right?
Yeah, he's a dear, dear friend. One of my oldest friends.
He's got a tattoo on his chest. Have you seen it?
I have, yeah. Well, which one? He's got a couple on the chest.
The one on the upper right of his pec. It's like an eyeball with...
Yeah, I know it. I do know it.
Are you familiar with this symbol?
Yeah, because I drew it.
Why did you draw it?
I drew it because, I mean, my intention behind drawing that symbol, it's an eyeball with various branches reaching out from the top and bottom of it. And my intention with drawing it was that the eyeball is the self, and the branches below are the multiple paths and choices that led the self to where it is, and the branches above are the multiple paths and choices that will lead the self to where it's going. And that's just my personal interpretation of what that is, and that's why I drew it. And Kyle got that tattooed because we waged an art war together.
Would it be too highfalutin to say that you founded an organization with him?
I love that you used the word highfalutin. That's a word I like a lot. I mean, I think we solidified an organization, a loose organization of things together. The idea of that, if you're talking about the alien native movement, that was a thing that I had come up with before that, but it also seemed an apt thing to call what we were doing in 2015 in Charlotte during the art war, because it was I had a general idea of what I wanted that to be, and I put a call out to a lot of people from a lot of different places to come and to be involved in that, and we gave them. I invited Kyle to move in with me, Kyle the Emotron, and we altered the house where I lived into a place with a bunch of bunks so people could come and stay. We dumpstered food every night so we could feed them. And people came from a lot of different places and engaged in that. And that quote unquote organization seemed like the best loose term for what to call this collective of people. And you know, that term has, like most things, has the meaning of it has changed over time, and that's what it meant then. And it's, you know, meant a lot of different things before that, during that, after that. It's meant a lot of different things, and it's you know, like all things, it's malleable.
Now the alienation, I like saying it fast. Would you say ideology might be too strong a word? Was there a certain point of view that the members had together?
I mean, the motto was a basic motto that I've continued to put into the world for a long time. This created or perish thing. Like, I invited people to come and be a part of this and to do whatever they wanted to do on their own, and that we would support that, and also to be involved in collective ideas that we had together where there was some direction. And yeah, but it was all very loose. It was all very loose and vague, you know.
Was it
much
was it
like,
centered around projects more than around ideas?
well, no, the idea, it was centered more around the idea of let's all get together and put as many creative things into this one place together as we can. And uh, every idea was supported, and every, there were no rules. It was, uh, there were some guidelines if somebody, if people wanted to participate in some of the group actions that we did, where we had like a clear idea of what we were going to do. But we also supported people going out on their own and doing whatever they wanted to do on their own. You know, there was no, yeah, there was no concrete, uh, there was no concrete idea of what someone should or should not do. You know, like, people were encouraged to do on their own whatever they wanted to do, and many of them did. And then we did things together as a group, and just by the very nature of things where lots of people are uh, trying to organize, like are trying to do something together, there needs to be like some kind of organization in that sense. But also sometimes there was complete chaos, and that was fine too. The idea was just to inject a whole lot of art and creative expression into a place that at the time I felt like could use more of it. And I wanted to be the catalyst to invite people to put more of that into a specific place. And I felt like there needed to be a catalyst to attract those things. But beyond that, I didn't want too much control over it. I wanted just to be what it was going to be, and I didn't want to explain it. People who asked what it was supposed to be.
I see. Have psychedelics played a role in your development at all?
Absolutely, 100% yes.
Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, it's a big thing to talk about, but I'd be happy to I'd be happy to answer any specific questions you have about it. But
Would you say
it's a
that?
little too
Would you say
it's a
that?
little too broad of a thing to
Yeah.
surmise in like a sentence or two. But
Well,
yes, they have played a very big role in my life
would you say that
and
there
my
was
art.
a definite before and after period in terms of what you created?
Yeah, but like most things, it was in stages. I mean, like I first uh, tried psilocybin uh, when I was in high school, and it very much changed the way that I looked at the world. And there were multiple milestones after that.
Were you creating art before then?
Yeah, I've been making art since I was. I mean, I've been making art. I've been trying to create things since I was a very small child. I used to uh, draw little scenes of wars, like stick figure wars, when I was before I could write. And my grandmother, on my maternal grandmother, would write down the words that I said to her as the story to go along with my pictures. And that was, I don't know how old I was, but it was before I could write myself. And I started writing songs and recording them on a boombox when I was 9. So, I mean, yeah, like long before any kind of substance was playing it.
All right.
I was doing this.
I'm just trying to piece together, I guess it's sort of a loose timeline. Um, I'm getting pretty close to the end of my particular questions.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't want to hold you, but I've got nothing but time, so I'm happy to go on as long as you'd like.
Well, okay. Is there anything you would like to talk about in terms of your contemporary projects? Anything you're working on materially other than the residency?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of things in the works. I've got multiple albums, both personal album, original works that I've done solo wise, several split or collaborative projects in the works, and an album. I'm working on an album of traditional songs like Irish, Scottish, English traditional ballads that made their way over to the Americas in the last several hundred years. Yeah, I'm working on a lot of stuff, but it's all in various stages of progress, and I don't have any definitive timelines for like when those things will see the light of day. Or, I'm just trying to stay busy and uh, keep making stuff that feels like the right stuff to make to me. Um, I'm trying not to think too much about. I mean, I feel very lucky that people pay attention to what I do, um, but I don't want to be beholden to the expectations of what that means. That I want to make stuff that feels compelling to me and that feels relevant to me, because art, I think at its core, is a selfish act. Like you make things because you want those things to exist, and you hope, because you're a social creature, that other people will like those things, and if you're lucky, they do. And if you really believe in the things that you're doing, you'll do them even if they don't. So I'm just trying to do that. I'm just trying to, you know.
That sort of leads into the one question I haven't asked, and I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer this, but um, do you
Lay
have
it on me.
do you have do you have a greater fear of having to conform to a unified expectation, or being completely isolated?
Hmm. I I I like and fear both of those things equally, I think. Uh, I like being isolated sometimes, and I like being acknowledged sometimes. And I think probably most human beings uh, feel a similar way. Um, and I feel very lucky that I get to be isolated sometimes, and of my own will and privilege. I get to be isolated sometimes, and then of my own will and fortune and slash privilege, I get to be acknowledged sometimes, and uh, I think that both things are great, and both things are very important. Uh, I wouldn't say that I necessarily fear either one. Uh, I would say that my biggest fear is death,
Okay.
because I don't know what happens then, and I would like to continue to exist beyond this conscious world, and I cannot say that I believe that I will get to exist consciously beyond this. I think that I'll get to exist in a myriad of other ways, but I don't think consciously that I will continue to exist, and so I want to do what I can while I can, and if there's any chance that that will ripple into the world in such a way that it will have a positive effect on uh, people and beings and things that come after me, then that will be the best that I could possibly do. And I hope that's the case.
Very cool. The last thing I'll ask you is the last thing I always ask anyone, which is there anything else you were hoping to talk about that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to say?
You actually covered a very good range of things. And yeah, I can't, you being the one who instigated this conversation, I can't say that I would walk away from a conversation that someone else instigated where I felt like I didn't talk about something that I wanted to, like it's a pleasure to talk to you. It's a pleasure to think that someone's going to read this or like consider this. It's an honor that anything that I would have to say is that anyone would consider that important in any way, because I'm one of the billions of us. And yeah, I'm just grateful that anyone would care, would care what I'm doing or would care what I'm saying. And maybe they don't. And
Right.
that's okay too. That's okay too.
Well, the print edition will come out on August 1st, and there will
Okay.
also be an audio edition on our YouTube channel on August 2nd.
Okay.
If you would provide me some photographs, do you think you could do that?
Yeah, sure. Like, is there like something specific that you're looking for? Or?
Performance photographs, preferably, or if I don't know if you have any kind of like promotional photographs or not, but at least something, maybe 5 if you could, of you performing would be excellent.
Okay. Yeah, let me just put a note in. I'm incredibly forgetful, and I'm sorry for that.
Okay.
And just yeah, I could definitely do that. I'm lucky that you know, people who are very skilled photographers show up every now and then and take pictures of what I do. So I can definitely do that.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you talking to me.
Ryan, it's a pleasure, man. I'm sorry again for being so scatterbrained and not realizing that I hadn't given you my number and losing track of time. But it's an absolute pleasure, and I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, man.
All right. Yeah, I feel the same way. You have a good night.
Yeah, you too, man. Take care of yourself.
You too. Bye.
All the best to you. Bye.